welcome to Football Podcast with Brandon White
and Robert Thackrey.
Here to discuss, you guessed it, more preseason, offseason, all the not regular season happenings, but this time we're doing the AFC South.
All the unsavory seasoned things that we have that happened in the off season.
This is a division where in the past I would have been like, I really don't want to talk about them, but they're kind of an interesting division now.
I think they've always been an interesting division because, I mean, they're middling at best. They've always, like, the AFC South's groundwork is, I don't want to say groundwork, but the way that the division has looked has always been fairly similar. You're always just like, nobody's going to be a 10-win team, and if they are, like, whatever's going to happen. Or it's always been, you have this dominant team that starts up top. It's been Peyton Manning. It was Peyton Manning and the Colts for years. The Colts had a down season without Peyton. Got Andrew Luck. They came back with an 11-5 season. The season that was the Colts' down season was the Texans, and it's been the Texans going forward. But it's never been like hyper competitive. It's always it's like this team here, which may or may not be elite. Nobody like even when the Colts were winning all these crazy games, I never was of the opinion that they were like an elite, scary team. And that's the same way I look at the Texans when even though they could be like a 10-11 win team, it's not like I don't see them going very far in the playoffs when it really comes down to it.
This division has two teams that are both one player away from being legitimate Super Bowl contenders. The Texans are a quarterback away, and maybe they will have it with Deshaun Watson. We don't know. And the Tennessee Titans, who I think are an elite pass rusher away from being a legitimate contender, because it seems like they've got what they need on offense, and their secondary is not awful, but they just need pressure. And then you've got the Colts, who are 52 men away from being a competitor. 51 men. I'll let T.Y. Hilton have some props. And then you've got the Jaguars, who are one coaching staff away from being Super Bowl contenders, apparently.
That's hard to say. Based on your opinion, Jaguars could be closer than the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, the Jaguars have so much talent, but they have up until this year, they've had nobody in their front office or their coaching staff who seem to have any idea what the hell to do with all that talent. And now you've got a shiny new star in there, who we'll get to later, who may be able to kind of turn the ship around, so to speak, and, get the Jaguars on track to use that talent properly.
Spoiler alert, they won't. So, kick it off. We have the Houston Texans, who won this division last year. Good enough for a 9-7 record. Home and away split was actually something that was really interesting when I was looking at this. They were 7-1 at home and 2-6 away. That is counting an absolute beatdown in Foxborough, which happens, and then that weird Mexico City game. So they did have a couple odd instances of away games being kind of weird. But that's still a really interesting split for a team that went positive and still won the division. Like I said, good enough for the AFC South. It was a four seed. They ended up beating the Raiders in the divisional or in the wild card round, and then losing to the Patriots with a pretty big point differential in the divisional round. Big trade that happened before, or what dominated news before the
still
draft.
Dominates nudes like nudes. It dominates nudes. It dominates
Brock Lobster, the nude dominator. You heard it here first.
It dominates the news still because somehow we still keep talking about Brock Osweiler.
It's because he's getting paid all that money. If he wasn't getting paid that amount of money to basically exist, we wouldn't be talking about him. It's just the fact that a lot of people, the Texans especially, thought that he was overpaid. So they basically gave him to the Browns. They were like, listen, man, we're going to give you this and picks. Just take him. Just take him.
Like, please, we will pay you to just get this off our hands.
And now Hugh Jackson is saying that he possibly could be, they're gearing him up for him to be the starter in week 1, which, I mean, you don't have a better option. Cody Kessler, I thought, showed some signs.
I thought Kessler looked better than Osweiler, personally.
He looked better with a much worse team.
Yeah.
So I think Osweiler's going to have a very short leash. Because Hugh Jackson, I mean, he can't continue to underperform like that. So I think he might have a short leash, and you might experience a lot of stuff that happened last year with the Browns as far as their quarterback carousel continue to happen just because Osweiler won't be out there on the field a lot. But yeah, Texans just dumped him. They knew within a season that he was not the guy, both from a leadership and locker room standpoint, and from an on the field like talent standpoint. Like it just didn't work. It was a complete failure.
He's just tall Tebow.
I wouldn't even give him that. Big thing that they lost cornerback AJ Bowie.
AJ
Boye.
Yeah.
I like the name Bowie better.
Because he just bobs around in the water?
Because he's going to get smacked down playing for the Jaguars.
This is a guy who looked like one of the premier corners last year.
I think he had a flash in the pan season. I think there's these players that like pop up and have great seasons and end up getting paid. And it may be the fact that they end up getting paid and going to these teams that don't perform well like the Jaguars, so we don't really know. But a lot of the times if they end up going and getting paid, it's just and going to these teams, I don't see it. I didn't see it come up. And here I just don't know. I think he was a product of a pretty good front seven that the Texans put out.
All that pressure made the corners look better?
Significantly better. And I mean, granted, you still got to go out there and make plays, but I just don't. I don't think he was the premier free agent that a lot of people had him as.
Well, they weren't done letting their division have defensive players because they also let linebacker John Simon go to the Colts,
which was not good for their depth because Brian Cushing is perennially injured. Yeah,
that guy's constantly hurt.
They lost Quentin Demps, who, I mean, older player, safety, played for both the Eagles and the Panthers when they went on their 15-1 season. So still a good safety. Not rangy in terms of like pass coverage, but he's good enough to hold you back at the back end and hit some or take some or lay some hits. Talked about the guard that they lost, Ode Abushi, who since the Seahawks actually lost a tackle, may be in consideration for that starting left tackle spot. Seahawks traded for Matt Tobin from the Eagles for a 5th round pick, and they ended up, they gave up a 5th round pick. Eagles gave up Matt Tobin and a 7th. So there's thoughts that either he may start, which if he's starting, and I'm sorry, Seahawk fans, if he's starting, you've got problems. He's good, versatile, but I don't think he should be starting. I think the trade was for depth, but I mean they really don't have much of that now. So this guy, they may move him out, move him out to the tackle spot, so he might see a lot of work going forward. Center Tony Bergstrom, who was an integral part of their offensive line, ended up leaving. And they lost Devin Still to the Jets, and Vince Wilfork retired and ended up signing like one of those honorary one-day contracts with the Patriots. Retired as a Patriot, but yeah, Vince Wilfork is no longer going to be shoring up that middle of the line for them, which I think is going to be a bigger loss than a lot of people are realizing. Because I mean, that man could still play.
Big Vince is like one of the greats.
Yeah, and even if he wasn't like as athletic as he used to be, he was still a very big body in that middle that could get a hefty amount of push. So that'll be interesting to watch their line going forward. Notable arrivals, they really weren't big or active in free agency going this year. They had safety Marcus Gilchrist. They ended up giving a contract, and tackle Breno Giacomini, I think. I want to say Giacomini. And they also, I thought this was interesting as I was doing research, Wes Welker is on their team, or they signed him, and he's like a special assistant. He really doesn't have a specific title, but he's a
special assistant because of all the head injuries he's had.
He's a special assistant to both special teams and offense. So I mean, he's just like a consultant. I imagine like he'll give them whatever. And it's the Texans are like grabbing like Patriots people because they ended up actually promoting Mike Vrabel, who was their linebackers coach last year, to defensive coordinator, and they ended up promoting Romeo Cornell, also an expatriate, to assistant head coach, and he's also going to be coordinating the defense as well.
Actually, with the defense they have, this is kind of scary. They did have the number 1 defense in the league last year, and their coaching staff is pretty
That was with J.J. Watt
stacked.
injured.
Yeah, and that's with J.J. Watt injured. And Jadeveon Clowney is now starting to be healthy and be that premier defensive player.
We think.
I'm not going to get into the debate, but you know what I'm thinking.
They signed tight end Ryan Griffin, re-signed Ryan Griffin, re-signed Nick Novak, re-signed Shane Leckler, very good punter.
So I hear.
Putting together a decent special teams unit. Brandon talked about it a little bit, gave it away. Their 13th overall pick in the first round, they actually traded up to get Deshaun Watson because there was a run on quarterbacks. I think the Chiefs scared him when they traded up to like 10 and picked Patrick Mahomes, and they're like, "Fuck, Deshaun Watson's not gonna fall to us. We need to get him."
Yeah.
They gave up a decent amount to go from the mid-20s to go to 13,
from like 27, I think, or 26 to
I think it was
13.
26.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I mean, they obviously think he's the guy, or they want him to be the guy. I mean, Bill O'Brien, quote unquote, and a lot of people get this title, but quarterback whisperer is what they say. Wasn't able to do anything with Brock, who had decent physical talent from what we saw when he was with the Broncos and played in spot duty. So Deshaun Watson's definitely interesting. It's definitely going to be a project. He has played well in the 2 preseason games that we have seen, using his legs more often to create opportunities. But I mean, when you have that ability, when you have that talent, I'm not going to fault you for doing it. Like, you got to play to your strengths, play to your game. And I mean, he's a mobile guy. He's going to create mismatches, and if he can hold on to the ball, I mean, there's only there's only a certain amount of time that like corners and safeties and linebackers can stay on their guys. Like 5 seconds when you got guys that are this fast and this athletic is a long time to stay on there. So if they can play to his strengths the same way, say, Harbaugh or Pete Carroll early in their careers when they got both Colin Kaepernick and Russell Wilson, play to their strengths as far as offensive game planning, it's going to be a really interesting team to watch, because it's not like they lack offensive talent with Lamar Miller and DeAndre Hopkins backing them up. And this is Bill O'Brien, like we said, Belichick coaching tree, talked or was on the same coaching staff at one time as Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels famously turned Tim Tebow into a playoff-winning quarterback. So things can happen. And this is all talking about game planning around Deshaun Watson, because when I was coming out, I didn't have a very high grade on him. Quarterbacks are always going to be overvalued just because of how important they are to running a team. But I mean, this is one of those things where, like, this is why Tebow got such praise, is that the guy's a winner, quote unquote. And you can only really, like, that only goes so far. Like, you can only pound that into the thing. Like, the guy's got to go and he's got to put in the work.
You can look great in college, and you can have a fantastic championship game in the college, but that doesn't mean it's going to translate to the NFL.
Right, and I mean, there's more quarterbacks that have not translated, assuredly, like no way to prove that otherwise, that haven't translated than have translated. So this guy's going to have to go in and put in the work, but you can't argue against him having a great physical tool set, and something to where if they don't put him out on the field and force him to just make I want to say make do, because I mean, like I said, this is a playoff team, or was a playoff team last year. If you give him enough time to really understand what's happening and don't force him to sacrifice his mechanics because he just wants to get the ball out, because he has thrown some awkward sidearm passes that I've seen. Then this guy could be interesting.
Could be the second coming of Phillip Rivers, then.
I was going to say RG3.
I wasn't going to make that comparison. That feels racist.
No, I mean, they're both mobile quarterbacks that had really great tool sets. I mean,
hopefully this
he doesn't have
knees.
he doesn't have Shanahan coaching for him, so hopefully he'll be taken care of better. Round 2, they went Zach Cunningham, linebacker out of Vanderbilt. Hopefully it'll shore up their depth, because they let go of a linebacker in free agency, as well as big guy Brian Cushing being very injured very often. So
be another toy from Mike Vrabel to play with.
They ended up drafting Deontay Foreman, running back out of Texas. I think this is a very interesting pick because it's not like they don't have a guy at running back here. I mean, this guy is a guy that went out and ran for 2,000 plus yards in this last season, multiple touchdowns, basically carried that pretty poor Texas team to whatever wins they might have had. This guy's a really talented spellback for the now. I mean, this guy could come out and actually be a starting running back and be a top 5 running back if everything goes well for him.
He's got those names. It's just like, I'm going to run the ball a lot.
Deontay, I'm going to run the ball a lot, Foreman.
Yeah.
Julian, I wanted to say Julian Davenport. It's Julie apostrophe N, and that's the only way I can think to say it.
They got 2 players at once. They got Davenport immediately after Julie.
They got Julian Davenport, tackle out of Bucknell in the 4th round. Carlos Watkins, defensive tackle out of Clemson in the 4th round, probably to shore up this Vince Wilfork thing because they even though Vince Wilfork retired way after the draft, I mean, you know if he's going to retire generally.
Yeah.
Treston DeCowd, cornerback out of Oregon State, and round 7, Kyle Fuller, center out of Baylor. So I think there's a lot of interesting picks that they had. 2 which I think are going to come in and contribute immediately. That being Zach Cunningham and Deontay Foreman, and possibly Deshaun Watson. Tom Savage is the starting quarterback, but with how things are in this league, week to week, these people could yank him quick. So we'll see. He hasn't done well. He hasn't done bad in the preseason games. I don't think he's going to warrant anything to get yanked. But they drafted Watson with their 1. They traded up to get him. Eventually, Bill O'Brien might get some pressure to put him out on the field. So hopefully that doesn't happen if he's not ready.
Tom Savage has the skill set to be an Alex Smith. Like that's his ceiling.
Yeah, I don't think Tom Savage is going to get pulled because of poor play.
If he can just be the stopgap and they can give Deshaun Watson a full year to sit, then that would be great. But
I mean, it's crazy because you're saying a full year, like that's completely out of the ordinary. When people like Aaron Rodgers
used to sit for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, Tom Brady sat behind Bledsoe for a while. It's so did fucking Tony Romo. It's such an interesting time where if you're sitting, like you're a project. Like you're not ready to start now. Even Carson Wentz, who I thought should have sat, didn't sit. So
yeah. I mean, I thought Derek Carr should have sat, and he ended up having to start too. We live in a league nowadays where there's no patience anymore. You've got to rush out, win, save your job because they don't give coaches time anymore.
No, you're lucky if you get 3 seasons.
Yeah.
So I mean, they've done well. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I personally have them going 10-6, 4-2 in the division, being a 4 seed, basically repeating on what they did last year, because when you look at it, there's not a huge amount of turnover in terms of what they did in the offseason. They drafted a couple key pieces in the draft, but this team was a team that was playoff bound despite Brock Osweiler, and that's what I'd like. Despite Brock Osweiler, so you put in somebody that plays just as well, if not better, and Tom Savage has already gone out and shown that he can make the proper throws. This is a team that can easily win 10 games, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I have them going 10-6 and winning the division because the division is both weak and they aren't a bad team.
It's funny that what you say because you made me think of the fact that if there's one thing that Brock Osweiler learned from Peyton Manning, it was how to let your defense drag you kicking and screaming to the playoffs, which is what happened last year. That being said, the team got better by getting rid of Brock Osweiler.
Addition by subtraction.
Yes, one of my favorite things ever. I have them going 11-5, 5-1 in the division. Just without looking, just going by memory, I'm assuming I had them split with the Titans.
Could have split with the Colts too. They're always scary.
Yeah, but again, like they only got better, and that defense it was the best defense in the league last year. And it didn't really get worse.
By the numbers, it was. And
Yeah.
like I said, they're going to get J.J. Watt back. He's going to be healthy. We
Yeah.
hope.
Now, granted, they were playing their division, so that pads the defensive numbers.
Yes.
But, I mean, if J.J. Watt stays healthy for the first time in 1,000 years, then that's a really scary defense that has a really, really good tenured coaching staff. Like, there's a lot going on there that could be just a... I'm not going to say it will be an all-time great defense, but it has the potential to develop into one of those defenses in the next couple years.
Right, and I mean, speaking of splitting with the Titans, they're the ones who actually ended up challenging them for the crown, and this is a really interesting team that we're going to talk about. They ended up finishing the season with a much better split, more even, which I think is going to allude to really good things, as well as a bunch of other things which we're going to talk about. But finished the season in 2016 9-7, home 5 wins, 3 losses, away 4 wins, 5 losses. So more balanced than what the Texans were able to do. Unfortunately, no playoffs. They were right on the cusp. Good for second in the AFC South. They did end up losing quite a bit. Quarterback Jason McCourty ended up signing with the Browns. They lost Al Woods to the Colts. The Colts are just picking up like the scrap heap of their division.
Divisional incest.
Literally trying to find anybody who will play on defense for them.
Yep.
Tight end Anthony Fasano, who older guy, still could pass, still could catch the ball, but he was mainly using their 2 tight end sets because they had Delaney Walker and they had DeMarco Murray, so they ran a lot out of the 2 tight end. Apologies. Linebacker Sean Spence ended up leaving. Tackle Byron Bell, who's going to be might possibly. I don't think he'll start, but I mean on a Cowboys line, because that's who he ended up going to. On a Cowboys line, it's going to be hard to fight for a starting position. Kendall Wright ended up signing with the Bears. Chance Warmack signed with the Eagles. Brian Schwenke signed with the Colts, and Andre Johnson retired because he couldn't hit all 4 teams.
Yeah, I mean,
he was trying to go for
the
it.
Jaguars didn't want him,
but he was like, I have enough. He's like, I have more self-respect than that to go and play for the Jaguars. So 3 out of 4 is not bad. It's not bad.
Andre Johnson, one of the greatest wide receivers of the generation that just kind of passed.
Just nobody really talks about him.
Nobody talks about him because of all the other great wide receivers that he played alongside.
That, and he was the outlier in that he wasn't the one with a mouth. Like, he wasn't the self-aggrandizing type. When he played with people,
he sure beat the shit out of Cortland Finnegan in a game one time.
But when you played alongside or in the same time frame as, like, say, Chad Ochocinco or Chad Johnson, and whoever you choose to name him, and T.O., it's hard to get some props, even though he got wasted on a Texans team that was just bad,
never going to compete. Yeah, you know what could have been. I hate to be the guy to bring him up, but if David Carr had an offensive line, what could him and Andrea Johnson have done?
Or Matt Schaub was a effective quarterback.
Yeah, like Matt Schaub, who was mediocre but really, really good at being mediocre. So Andre Johnson, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge, Andre had a great career. He was a fantastic wide receiver. I think people underrate the hell out of him, and it sucks to see him go.
Hall of Very Great.
Hall of Very Great, absolutely. And also of note, the Colts picked up, 3 players off of the Titans?
You're going to see some common themes, and one is the Colts basically taking everything away from them and saying, hey, I mean, how much worse could we really get?
Yeah. And the Bears also showed up again.
Notable arrivals, quarterback Logan Ryan, safety John, I want to say Cyprian, from the Jaguars, defensive tackle Sylvester Williams. I just love people who are named Sylvester. I just wanted to say that. I think it's a really cool name.
It is.
Safety Bryden Trewick, wide receiver Brendan
Trewick.
That looks like a Bryden, though, if you want to really... I'm bad at names, and I don't know why he keeps letting me read them.
Because it's fun for me.
It's awful for our listeners. I apologize in advance. Wide receiver Eric Decker. huge pickup late in the season. Really interesting because I did not see him signing with the Titans. The moment he signed with the Titans, I was like, okay, Eric Decker knows something that we don't, I think.
I just want everyone to know that I hate Eric Decker. I think I said that last year. I'm saying it again this year. Fuck Eric Decker.
We get to see Eric Decker live.
Yeah, we do.
Linebacker Eric Walden and wide receiver Eric Weems re-signed defensive tackle Carl Klug, tight end Philip Supernaw, who is
got an also a really cool name.
Probably going to be the tight end that replaces either him or somebody in their draft is probably going to be the tight end that replaces Anthony Fasano in their 2 tight end sets. Linebacker Nate Palmer. Executive Vice President / GM John Robinson just basically got a pay raise in a different office because he was already the GM.
Yeah.
He just got Executive Vice President also attached to his name. Dennis Kelly they ended up re-signing, who was got traded to the Titans from the Eagles for Dorial Green-Beckham, who is no longer on the team. So we saw who won that trade.
Yeah, really.
Quarterback Matt Castle, who is going to be
still
backing
in the league.
backed up Marcus Mariota. He was the one that was out there leading them at the end of the division or at the end of the season. And they picked up tackle Taylor Lewin's 5th-year option.
Arguably one of the best, if not the best, tackles in the league.
One of the best tackles out there right now. I would put him up there with your Trent Williamses, your Donald Penns, Jason Peters, whoever the hell is on the left side of the Cowboys line.
Like, this guy's a fucking awesome tackle.
But he's somebody who definitely contributes to what I would say is a top 5, could be a top 5 line in the Titans. In the draft, they ended up taking probably the best wide receiver in the draft in Corey Davis, wide receiver out of Western Michigan. A lot of people looked at him at the as far as like the eye test went, and they were like, "This guy's great," but Western Michigan, and I've been one to say, didn't play against reputable talent, but I think this guy shined both on and off the field, regardless of who he was playing against. He's a guy who wants the ball. He'll go over the middle.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a bona fide one.
You can't fake fast, long, and good hands.
It's like when Michael Crabtree came out of Texas Tech, and everybody was like, "But he played in Texas Tech," and I was like, "He's Michael fucking Crabtree. He's going to be good." Like it wasn't even a 1 or 2 thing when they were trying to be like, well, him or whoever after him. It wasn't even close because this is a really good receiving
Darius Hayward-Bay.
I know. I just didn't want to disrespect you.
Just say it. Yeah, it was him and Darius Hayward-Bay.
It was one of those things where this is a deep class for wide receivers with people like John Ross being out there, people like Mike Williams being out there. But I thought Corey Davis was the cream of this crop. So they got a really, really scary weapon for an already scary Titans team that is loading up at wide receiver, which would seem to be their only issue, their only weakness.
Loading up at offense in general.
Because Marcus Mariota, and this is what we're talking about, Mariota is coming out, and he could be just deep inhale. Like, he could be the real deal. Like, he came out, and before he just terribly injured his leg, he was putting up some really good numbers.
He was accurate as hell. Mobile,
he was the top fantasy scorer between weeks 5 and 12.
He's like a baby Aaron Rodgers.
He's good.
I don't know if he's quite got the arm, but everything else, he's like baby Aaron Rodgers.
I want him to prove me wrong because coming out, I didn't think he was going to be all that good. I thought it was Jameis and then. But if he goes out and plays well, like it's great, and I really hope the leg injury doesn't hold him back, especially since he relies more on that mobility. Even though I'd say mobility when I say Deshaun Watson, but that guy is a runner, whereas Mariota tends to be more of like a
shuffler, like a Tom Brady, just like shifting around in the pocket.
Like Aaron Rodgers type of mobility would be the best suit for him, really.
Yeah, like I said, I see him in his play style, and I think with more polish and more, I don't know, something like he's got the Aaron Rodgers vibe to him. That's scary.
More Supernaw.
Yeah.
Also, round 1, they drafted Adoree Jackson, quarterback out of USC. this guy's just fast. Like this guy's speed when it really comes down to it. Like he might not be the biggest guy, he may not be the tallest guy, but he's got the makeup speed and he's got tenacity in him, and he's going to be a really good returner if nothing else. And they might also like throw in some gadget plays for him on offense because he did take a few offensive snaps.
Yeah, this guy was athlete. That was his position.
I think he was doing what Jabril Peppers did, but better and more efficient. Because this is a Jabril Peppers kind of player where they were like, he can go anywhere. He can play, any type of position. Like, he's even an offensive weapon. And I was like, the
downside of that is you're not going to be a monster at any of them if you're that versatile.
But this is the difference, is that Jabril Peppers wasn't a monster in anywhere, whereas Adoree Jackson is actually a pretty good corner. Mm-hmm. And this is a deep corner class, too. So, they took arguably some of the best players at their positions in a very deep class for those positions.
Expect dime packages from the Titans this year.
Tawan Taylor, wide receiver out of Western Kentucky in the third round. Interesting because they're, like I said, they're loading up on wide receiver. They definitely understand what they're going right now. Jonnu Smith, who I talked about, could also be like that second tight end if Supernaw doesn't end up panning out. Jayon Brown, linebacker out of UCLA. Interesting. He's going to give them some depth coming out of their rushing packages. Corey Levin, guard out of Chattanooga. Josh Carraway, linebacker out of TCU. Brad Seaton, tackle out of Villanova. And Khalifani Muhammad, running back out of California. They had 3 picks in round 7 that were 10 spots apart at best, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And they just got another 7th round pick recently too. So we've heaped a decent amount of praise on the Titans throughout this, and I think you can kind of feel where we're going, or at least where I'm going. I'm super high on the Titans. There's 2 teams that I think that are going to break out. It's going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and it's going to be the Tennessee Titans. Those two teams are probably. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they were bad, and then they ended up being in that position to draft that quarterback. But there's teams who are currently drafting in the top 10, Cleveland, who are not getting any better. So you do have to, 1, coach, and 2, progress develop your talent and also pick up the necessary pieces in free agency. But I do see both of those teams, or I do predict both of those teams, or project both of those teams to really come out and light it up this year. They could possibly take the division, in my opinion.
The Titans scare me. The Titans, in the AFC, the Titans scare me.
They're interesting. We haven't even talked about DeMarco Murray. We haven't talked about Derrick Henry.
Exactly.
Who they also have. They have Rashard Matthews, who could be a one. They went out and got Eric Decker. They went out and got Corey Davis. Their line is just as good as it was last year. Their defense is playing with tenacity, and some might call it they might be a bit dirty when they come out and play. So they've got a ferocious, nasty defense as well. I have them going also 10-6, but they lose on tiebreakers to the Texans, unfortunately. But they do make it 6th team, or the 6th playoff spot. They are a wild card team, in my opinion.
I flipped with you. I have them going 12-4 this year.
What?
5-1 in the division, splitting with the Texans almost certainly, and I have them as the 4 seed with the Texans as the 6 seed.
Jeez,
I fear the Titans.
That's a hot take. A 12-win Titans team.
Yeah,
that's a hot take.
Nah, man. I fear the Titans enough that I think that when we go see that season opener in Nashville, I'm genuinely afraid we are going to lose to the Titans.
We being the Raiders.
And we because our money.
I get to see a football game. I'm happy regardless.
That's good. At least they'll have good chicken and beer, probably. Yingling and Nashville hot chicken.
Can't be any worse than what we had at Paul Brown Stadium.
Paul Brown Stadium. I don't know if I think we said this last year, but we'll say it again for those out there who may be attending football games at Cincinnati. Paul Brown Stadium.
It is a concrete hellscape.
It is a concrete hellscape. I think that's exactly what we referred to it as last year. Paul Brown Stadium is the worst place on earth. Paul Brown Stadium is where the Jets season is going to die this year. So, just trust us on that. It's awful, and the people are awful too.
The perennial winners over the past between 1999 and we'll say 2011, the Indianapolis Colts are next on the docket. 2016 record, 8-8, average, 4-4 at home, average, 4-4 away, average. I think they're going to be an average team. Truthfully, I don't see them progressing and doing anything. They're in the middle of the win-nowiest rebuild that I've ever seen because they have Andrew Luck, but they
commit to the rebuild.
Yeah, they went out and I think they got ahead of themselves when Andrew Luck went out and just like lit it up and had that 11-5 season, had that crazy comeback against the Chiefs. And they're like, we're gonna be okay. We don't have to try. And I'm just like, no, your defense is still shit.
Yeah, they're still trotting out the ghost of Bob Sanders on defense.
Departures, GM Ryan Grigson. We talked a little bit about him on the earlier episodes during the last season. Not a great GM. Ended up putting them in the hole that they are as far as defense and offensive line goes. I mean, they've let talent go. You could say the only great signing that he had, both free agency and in the draft, would be Frank Gore. And the only reason Frank Gore came was because he heard that the Eagles were talking to both DeMarco Murray and Ryan Matthews, and he didn't want to be no side bitch.
Yeah.
So Ryan Grigson wasn't even attracting Frank Gore, and that wasn't even their first area. But they are benefiting from having Frank Gore, who also could go down in the Hall of Very Great.
I want to call him a Hall of Famer because of his longevity alone as a running back. He's got the bulk stats and the longevity. Like
bulk stats alone don't make it into the Hall of Fame for me.
Right.
You have to be
the longevity's got to be there, and because I mean, again, he comes from an era of
not even longevity, but like for example, Kurt Warner could have been less of a lock than Frank Gore because of bulk stats and because of amount of time played. But Kurt Warner is like, you say Kurt Warner and you know who Kurt Warner is. Like he was a part of his team, had a name. Like his 2000, 2001
greatest show on turf.
Yeah, like they had a name. So
Yeah.
I mean, what did Frank Gore do other than play for the Jim Harbaugh 49ers, who
he
lost
came
the
out
Super
of one
Bowl?
of the greatest college teams of all time.
He's
He's now the last remaining player from that team in the league as a running back. He's 38,000 years old and still playing.
hopefully to get 38,000 million yards.
He's that old and still a top 10 running back possibly.
We could do this, but it's probably not going to be fun. But yeah, I'll agree.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to look it up to confirm it stat wise and everything, but it's plausible.
No, I mean, just based on the eye check when you say it, I'm not going to scoff at you. So I think that's.
I think he had
fair.
he had 860 yards or something.
He had a very good season behind a terrible Colts offensive line, and having people like I'm forgetting, but whoever they have as the Indianapolis Colts backup, because Andrew Luck
quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's probably Dan Orlovsky again or something.
I think that's right. I think that is right. But yeah, they had Grigson, who they hired by the Browns. So we'll see there. I thought the Browns front office was doing good things, but then they did this, and I was like,
Well, I mean,
I can't go 5-11 with Grigson on the fucking team, can I?
You try.
Traded Dwayne Allen to the Patriots. Traded Dwayne Allen to the Patriots.
So now Dwayne Allen's going to be like an all-pro tight end.
He's going to get some time because Gronkowski is
going to be hurt,
going to be injured. Safety Mike Adams signed with the Panthers. Defensive end Zach Kerr signed with the Broncos, which I think is going to be a big loss. And linebacker Eric Weldon, also I think a decent loss, signed with the Titans.
Take that, Indy.
Notable arrivals: Chris Ballard. Looked up a little bit about him. Basically, just a scout before this with the Bears for a while. But he's committed to, and you'll see this just because of their arrivals. But he's committed to making this defense good. Jonathan Hankins played well last season with the Giants, also got paid. Jabal Sheard, linebacker John Simon, who ended up snaking from the Texans, if I'm not mistaken. Defensive tackle Marcus Hunt, defensive tackle Al Woods, signed a punter and Jeff Locke, wide receiver Kamir Aiken, linebacker Sean Spence, and center Brian Schwenke. So I mean, looking at this, and we'll talk about the draft, but I mean, this guy is going out. He's like, listen, this defense was atrocious, and I'm not going to let anybody like think it wasn't. And he said publicly, he's like, listen, I got to do something about this defense. And he's going out and he's actually trying to improve. Whereas like Grigson, I don't know, was like trying to improve his greasy hair.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They came out swinging in the draft too. I mean, we'll get there, but I mean, like talking about like what he did. I mean, we can do the draft now if you want. Yeah, well, 'cause, I mean, they only had 3 re-signings. Tight end Jack Doyle,
who could be good. I mean, they let Colby Fleener go for Jack Doyle and Dwayne Allen, who both seem to be having better careers than Fleener is having now in New Orleans.
Yeah, Robert Turbin, running back, who has kind of been a journeyman running back the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
He's nothing special. He's just there for depth, basically. And Darius Butler, cornerback, just one of the few decent pieces.
Yeah, I was like
defense.
one of the only shining pieces.
Like you got to keep him. But they came out swinging in the draft, I think, with Malik Hooker, safety out of Ohio State,
which would have been the second Ohio State secondary or player who played in the Ohio State secondary off the board at that time, with Garyon Conley coming off later to the Raiders. That's 3 off at Ohio State. Backs that went in the first round. That's telling.
Yeah,
I mean I think Malik Hooker's the real deal.
Yeah, so they're trying to solidify
this is deep at safety too,
yeah.
because 2 safeties also came off before him, and I think he's.
Yeah, this was such a good draft for the secondary. Corners
he's good.
And safeties were amazing.
He's good. I think he will help them definitely on the back end because this isn't. I mean, if Blake Bortles returns to form, and we'll talk about that a little later. If Blake Bortles returns to form, they could have a pretty scary passing attack in Jacksonville, and I think Marcus Mariota injury, if he comes back from that injury, ends up playing well, they probably will have a pretty scary passing attack down in Tennessee. And I mean, you still have DeAndre Hopkins down there in Houston land, yeah. So I mean, you got to worry about that, and it's becoming an increasingly
it's like a
more passing,
it's like an arms race in the South.
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming a largely passing league, so both pass rushers and defensive backs are becoming more valued, which they should be.
Yeah.
Quincy Wilson, like we said, this guy's committed to making this defense better. This is a guy that I thought the Eagles were actually going to target because this guy's one of those guys, and this is what you want in a quarterback, but he is confident. He thinks he's the best guy on the field. He thinks he's the shit. Mm-hmm. Like, he thinks he's the guy. And he quite possibly might be. I mean, like we said, very deep draft for corners, but I thought this was a guy that the Eagles were going to go after, and I thought he was really good. He's a stout tackler, very good in press coverage, and he's, despite being a small guy, like, he's just tenacious. Like I said, he's nasty. Terrell Basham, defensive end, Ohio State, continuing the theme of defense. Tackle USC, Zach Banner, not necessarily where I wanted to see them or where they should have taken a tackle, but I mean, when you have as many holes as the Colts have, like, you got to take the best fit player available. But it is nice to see them address the line, which was atrocious last year. Andrew Luck. And we'll
spend as much time on his back as he did on his feet.
We'll finish this up and talk about Andrew Luck once we finish up the draft portion, but there's a lot of the reason why Andrew Luck was injured. Marlon Mack, running back out of South Florida in round 4. Grover Stewart, D tackle, Albany State. Nate Harrison, quarterback, Temple. A lot of Temple players going off because Temple's actually.
Yeah, this draft had like 8, 9.
We've seen Temple come up before, and we actually had a Temple player get drafted fairly high on our last one. I think we talked about.
Yeah.
Anthony Walker, junior linebacker out of Northwestern. So I mean, they got a lot of good picks in the first 5 rounds on defense. So I mean, it's going to take maybe a year or two for these guys to pan out, hopefully. But if they're able to hit on 75% of these picks,
Colts may be back.
Colts might have a pretty good defense, and I mean they still got Andrew Luck. And talking about Andrew Luck, I mean he's
asterisk on that statement.
Injured right now, has yet to play in a preseason game. Don't know if he's going to be back for the start of the season.
Speculations that he's hurt worse than has been kind of led on to the public.
And I mean, you got Dan Orlovsky possibly going out there. Fact check us, I guess. Going out there. What we mean to say is that whoever's going out there, and his name isn't Andrew Luck, and he's going to be playing quarterback for the Colts, your chances of winning that game and this division decrease significantly.
You just made me think of something. This is going to sound crazy, and mostly it's because I'm saying it. If Andrew Luck is still hurt, and if they think that he's going to be not ready for the start of the season, or maybe for even a few weeks,
trade him to the Patriots.
No.
Okay.
That's crazier. I was going to say, God, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. The Colts could go out and get Tim Tebow on the cheap because he's virtually indestructible. He's a big boy.
You're saying this because their line's awful.
Because their line is awful.
I was going to say, because Colin Kaepernick still is yet without a job.
Oh, God, no. I wasn't going to say Kaepernick. The reason this works, and this is like one of the few teams that you could do this, is Colts fans are 100% behind Andrew Luck. Like, they're sold on him. Like, he's one of the quarterbacks that Tim Tebow could roll into town and not really threaten. Like, the Tebow circus isn't going to invade Indianapolis. You could trot Tebow out there for 2 or 3 games, and maybe that offense could actually win one of those 3 games with him. I mean, it couldn't be much worse than Dan Orlovsky.
I think we're more likely to see Colin Kaepernick back and starting and/or playing in the league than we are Tim Tebow.
Correct. But Kaepernick would never go to Indianapolis because he would be too expensive to be a backup there. Tim Tebow, you could sign for like a veteran minimum. You can just roll him out there and then just stuff the ball with Frank Gore. I
don't see it, man. They
don't have. I'm not saying it's plausible. I'm just saying, like, of all the quarterbacks out there, if Andrew Luck's genuinely hurt, and like if they bring him back and he's still hurt, and that O-line still sucks, he's gonna die.
I'll take Kaepernick over Tebow, especially as a fit goes, because looking at it, and I don't want to go too much into this, but looking at it from a scheme standpoint, like Tim Tebow has a really slow release. He already hasn't spent a lot of time with his team, doesn't know the playbook, isn't able to check down, isn't able to change the plays, isn't able to change protections. Obviously wasn't very good at that, which is why they let him go in both New England and in Philadelphia with Chip Kelly, who didn't do any of that. You can literally blitz 5 and lock up, Hilton and Moncrief, and you'll probably win. Like, he just doesn't have the pocket presence and the know-how to really ride this team with a line that bad. Like, I understand what you're trying to say, but they just it wouldn't work. No. It wouldn't work. It would be a disaster from the start.
Shit on Tim Tebow, and it worked.
It did work.
But seriously, Kaepernick would never happen either because he'd be too much cap space.
I think he's a better fit. If you're going to give me the option between the two, I'm going to choose Kaepernick, and I'm going to fucking laugh in your face.
Oh God! But then you have a controversy if Kaepernick goes out there and wins and wins and wins.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
You signed him for a 1-year deal. He goes out at the end of that year. You lose nothing. You might not. I mean, you can try and talk to him as far as becoming a back. But if he ends up playing well, he goes somewhere else, and a team might overpay for him, and then he underperforms. The Colts lose nothing by bringing him back on the cheap, or bringing him in on the cheap.
I don't think he'd be cheaper than $6 million, and that's a lot to dedicate to a backup quarterback for a team that's maybe in a rebuild, maybe not in a rebuild. I don't know what to call him.
It's not a backup quarterback because he could be starting.
Well, yeah, but
he could be starting.
I'm saying this under the impression that Andrew Luck would be coming back, within a month of the season starting.
Joe Flacco got looked at wrong, and there was a bunch of crazy stuff going on as far as the Ravens signing.
That's because he hangs out with Todd Heap too much.
Jim Irsay wouldn't sign him, I think, is the real thing. But
Jim
I think
Irsay's
he fits.
too fucking high to know what's going on in his organization.
But I think that he fits. If you're looking at a fit for Kaepernick, and we've gone on this fucking Kaepernick thing again, but if you're looking at a fit for Kaepernick, that makes sense and could happen because he was with there and Frank Gore, and they don't lack the talent. Indianapolis isn't the craziest or the worst spot to put him. I mean,
This is turning into a hot take, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Like, you have this fire in your eyes right now. You're over here
because
holding
I don't
your
think
torch like Kaepernick to Indianapolis.
I don't think there are 64 quarterbacks out there better than Colin Kaepernick right now. I don't know if there are 32 quarterbacks out there better than Colin Kaepernick right now.
I was going to say I don't know if there are 64 quarterbacks. It's like, I'm not naming them. Good luck with that.
Anyway, we've gone off on a tangent. I'm not necessarily sure where we are as far as run time, but we'll continue to push on. Line's bad. I went in and I kind of talked about in a different form how bad the line is. Assuming best case scenario, Andrew Luck comes back and starts week 1, the line is still just as bad as it was.
Yeah.
And I kind of alluded to this, but Andrew Luck is partially to blame for what happens as far as him taking those hits. Like, he's got the Brett Favre syndrome I've seen since Brett Favre, because he doesn't have the escapability and like that weird, like, I'm gonna make a play out of this stuff that Tony Romo had, where like you see Tony Romo like escape, and I got fear. I had the fear of God put in me when that happened. But Andrew Luck doesn't like, he's too big. Like, he's a fast guy. He's got wheels. He just chooses not to run.
Yeah, and that's something that you've heard me comment multiple times about him. Why I think that he's
what do he run, a 4.6, like a high
4.56, I think,
like a low 6, a high 5, and I mean that's a fast guy.
Yeah,
he's got wheels. I mean, he's a big guy. He's got the stride. I mean, he could easily escape and pick up, 5 or 6
yards
in
the pocket, just with no situational awareness around him.
And coming back this year, off a shoulder injury, I want to say,
and broken ribs and a lacerated spleen.
Yeah, so I mean, he needs to be better. And I talked about this. I went extensively about this about Cam, but play styles, like, you need to, both for yourself and for the betterment of your team, understand who's around you, understand your play style, and play to your strengths. And getting crushed is not playing to your strengths.
Have you ever seen a quarterback that just keeps his eyes downfield too much? Like, I never thought that was possible, and Andrew Luck's like,
throw it away, live to fight another day, man.
Yeah.
That's something that I think should really be ingrained in Andrew Luck, and it hasn't been as of yet. And if you don't get it in there soon, you might not get as much time out of Andrew Luck. The same way I was saying, you might not get as much time out of Cam Newton as you might think, and you really need to. Like, this is a guy that's going to propel your team forward. You're not going to find a lot of quarterbacks better than Andrew Luck out there, and they're definitely not going to go out on the open market.
Yeah. What we're saying is that the Colts are wasting Andrew Luck's career. Not unlike they nearly wasted Peyton Manning's career.
I'm not going to go that far. Hopefully this new GM is able to build the team to where in the next 2 years he'll have a competent offensive line and some weapons, and not have to throw it 60 times a game to try and come back. But that being said, Andrew Luck also has to go out there and play smart.
Yep.
Like, you got to go out there and play smart. So I mean, based on looking at the team, I think they do have potential. I think they are on the upswing, hopefully. But it's all going to ride on Andrew Luck, and it's all going to ride on the same way it's all going to ride on Cam Newton. Like, I think there's a lot of similarities, a lot of parallels that I think I'm drawing between them and the Panthers now that I'm thinking about it. Surprisingly enough, I think I have them with a better record than I had the Panthers. No, I don't. I definitely do not. I'm wrong. I have them going 4-12.
Man,
I don't think they're.
I'm angry that you were harsher on them than I was. I think I gave them too much credit now.
I just don't see it. Like, there's.
No, I agree with you.
There's talent, but it's just 8-8. I feel like was
overachieving
for them.
I have them 7-9, and I'm not even sure how it happened. But they went 2-4 in the division, so I'm guessing
the AFC South has a really easy. They have an
easy schedule this year.
They have a good schedule this year.
They've probably got somehow got the Jets and the 49ers and the Rams all at the same time somehow.
It's a four-way battle royale.
Yeah.
At StubHub Stadium, or whatever it's called.
StubHub Center.
Yeah.
In, Inglewood? Wherever the hell it is.
Los Angeles.
So,
California.
To round out the AFC South, we have the most talented team in the division, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who went a whopping 3-13 in 2016.
Confused me with that earlier statement because I was like, the most talented team, and then I was like, but the Jaguars are left.
Yeah. This is the most underachieving team in the NFL, and I think that is the most confident statement I can make about any team in the league, other than the fact that the Patriots are cheat codes.
And the fact that the Browns are going to go 5-11 this year. Man, I am doubling down on that.
Hot takes. 3-13 last year. They were 2-6 at home, 1-7 on the road. Jaguars, of course, always give up a home game for London,
which is terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible. You guys need to stop that. I know you got a fan base growing there, but
now they're doing it to the Raiders with Mexico City.
Yeah, you got to stop that, man. Like you got to stop having these teams go, and it's putting. If there's a team that I guess can go to London, I don't know exactly what the travel time is, but I mean Jacksonville's on the coast. Like they're one of like a couple teams that are in prime position to travel there.
Love Jaguars,
but these London games they're at a weird time. You're doing more of them. It's putting a lot of travel mileage on a Jacksonville team that already has to travel a bit.
Yeah.
For it. So I mean, if you had to give me the option, and you know, if you've listened to this, you know how much I dislike Thursday night games. If you had to give me an option between disbanding, completely removing Thursday night games and removing the London / like Mexico City games, I would remove those games.
Oh, hell yeah.
Over the Thursday night games, because that's how much I think they're unfair to the teams, and they're
unfair to the fans too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, cool. People in the United Kingdom and Europe get to.
And I don't want to disparage anybody who may be listening, and also maybe a Jaguars and or whatever fan. A lot of Patriot fans out in London as well, from what I've found.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just unfair. Like, people who live in cities, who buy the merchandise, who support these teams, lose a home game. The players lose a home game. That's what little advantage the Jaguars are getting from both of their swimming pools. They're losing that by playing a game a year in London.
These are season ticket holders that are having a game taken away from them.
Yeah.
And this is happening with the Raiders now. That they seem to be making a trend of it in Mexico City. These are season ticket holders.
And they're doing China next year. The Patriots, I think, are going to have a home game in China next year.
That travel time is going to be ridiculous.
That's going to be wild.
That's going to be.
If they're going to keep this up, they're going to have to add 2 bye week or another bye week.
They're going to have to. They're going to have to. It's the amount of time that they're already putting people in the air are. It's stupid now, and it's only going to get crazier.
It's like a Joe Flacco pass.
It's only going to get crazier.
Yeah. So, needless to say, they were 4th in the AFC South last year. Somehow didn't manage to make the playoffs.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Controversial.
Not as controversial as the first notable departure we're going to list. The Gus Bus has left the station.
The Gus Bus has left the station and has landed in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Gus Bradley, head coach extraordinaire, the one man in the world who could have as talented of a roster as he did and go 3-13, it seems.
He couldn't even Jeff Fisher, right?
Yeah, like Jeff Fisher was better at being awful.
Right.
Yeah. Oh man. They also
some 7-9 bullshit right there.
Yeah, they lost offensive coordinator Greg Olson, the inferior Greg Olson in the NFL. I should point out. I'm obviously not a fan. They lost tight end Julius Thomas. He was traded to Miami.
Traded to Miami for Brandon Albert, who then retired and then unretired, and then Tom Coughlin was like, no. He's retired.
Yeah.
And then Brandon Albert was like, fuck. That's how it went. I was there.
That's almost exactly how it went verbatim. Julius Thomas, who proved to probably just be a product of Peyton Manning.
And that groundbreaking, record-breaking Broncos offense.
Yeah. He's gone off to Miami to go catch passes from Smoke and Jay. Safety Jonathan Cyprien, who we said earlier went to the Titans. Again, a lot of incest with divisions. You play these guys a lot.
You see them,
scout
you
the
know
talent.
them. You know
if they're
better
a
than
fit.
yeah.
Tackle Kelvin Beachum, who went to the Jets to go, I guess, relax for a year.
Get paid.
Get
paid.
Guard Luke Joeckel, who went to the Seahawks.
Also could be in contention for that starting left tackle position now that nope, right tackle. One of the tackles. Okung's still there. No, he's not.
Russell Okung is not there now.
Russell not there. Yeah, that's why their line sucks.
Yeah.
Dick. Yeah, their
line always sucks dick.
They could yeah, this guy could be in contention for it.
Yeah,
so.
Joeckel will instantly be probably the most talented person on the Seahawks O-line. Cornerback Prince Mukamara, who's now a Bear, who I guess missed the NFC. Decent cornerback, former Giant.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So hopefully he has some success with the Bears. Defensive end Tyson Alualu, who's now a Steeler. Again, Steelers, their defense has been improving year over year, getting back to their...
I wanted to say Alualu, but I don't know.
It's Alualu.
Alualu?
Yeah.
Okay.
And cornerback Devon House, who is now a Packer. So the Jaguars basically just had a fire sale on their defense this offseason. Notable arrivals, were very interesting. Bit of a rebuild. Head coach Doug Marrone.
Can you rebuild a rebuild?
Yes, you can.
The Jaguars have been rebuilding since Tom Coughlin left.
It's a house of cards. Once it tumbles, you just start picking them up and start over again. So they got Doug Marrone.
Chaos is a ladder. God damn it.
Yeah, time is a flat circle. Offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett and Executive Vice President of Football Operations Tom Coughlin. This is the thing I mentioned at the very beginning of this episode that I couldn't wait to get to, actually, because Tom Coughlin...
Tommy?
Yeah, was just...
I know, like I said, I was there personally. I can call him Tommy.
Yeah. Hell of a head coach who just was past his expiration date with the Giants. He's now a front office guy for the Jaguars, and he's been all about changing the culture in Jacksonville. He's basically said, no fun unless you win. Have fun while being the best, Jaguars.
He's like, this is a no fun league, and Jacksonville is the no fun zone. Yeah. All right.
So I don't know if how many people know this. You might know this. There's something known as Tom Coughlin time, where in your training facilities, stadium, everything, he sets the clocks 15 minutes fast, so that everyone is expected to arrive 15 minutes early. If you are not 15 minutes early to practice, you are late. That is a Tom Coughlin rule.
Tom Coughlin is a hard ass old school coach.
Yeah,
man. He is, and I mean that's part of the reason why I think he was on his way out in New York. Is that like that shit kind of gets old, especially if you may have won 2 Super Bowls, but on those not Super Bowl winning years, you were a losing team.
Yeah.
So that kind of shit kind of gets weak when you're doing that. Bill Belichick can do that stuff because they've gone 16-0. I mean, they're perennial, double-digit win team.
He's kind of Mickey from Rocky. I feel like that's what Tom Coughlin did. He's Mickey from Rocky.
He also looks like Mickey from Rocky.
Exactly. Of course, as we said earlier, they got quarterback A.J. Boye from the Texans, defensive end Calais Campbell, safety Barry Church, tackle Earl Watford, defensive tackle Stephen Charles, tight end Michael Rivera.
They have a pool in their stadium, don't they?
2 pools.
That's why he went there.
Michael Rivera, so that Nair Rivera can. Yeah, mm-hmm. I'm going to watch Jaguars games for that alone.
You're only going to watch 7 home games.
So the Jaguars got tight end Michael Rivera. The Jaguars Stadium got Nair Rivera. They also got linebacker Audio Cole and linebacker Laurenti McCray. So
he is McCray.
That which they've lost, they sort of tried to pick up through free agency.
Overpaying Bouye and Calais Campbell, in my opinion.
Maybe on Calais Campbell, I don't know. Boye, we'll have to see. Again, they did have a great defensive coaching staff in Houston, but they do have a fairly defensive-oriented organization in Jacksonville, so maybe he can still perform there. Again, the Jaguars will be playing against the AFC South for sure.
Doug Marrone, I think, is their head coach. You didn't. I don't know if you said that.
I did say that. Yeah, I blasted right past him because he I'm not impressed. Anyways, so they re-signed GM Dave Caldwell, who's actually done a pretty damn good job drafting the past few years. They've gotten a lot of good young talent, especially on offense. They also re-signed quarterback Chad Henne, who is, serviceable backup quarterback. Wide receiver Brian Walters, who is just a depth receiver. And guard Patrick Omame. Yes, Omame.
Oh, May-May.
Oh, May-May.
Oh, those May-Mays.
I love May-Mays.
They're so dank.
So, I'll let you start the draft because I know you're going to have words to say about this first pick.
You think so?
I think so.
Round 1, number 4 overall, Leonard Fournette, running back out of Louisiana State University, also known as LSU. Those Tigers.
So they say.
I don't know what you're expecting here from me, but I think it was a good pick.
I thought that you were going to say that Leonard Fournette is overrated and injury prone.
Yes.
That's what I thought you were going to go with. Like,
but I mean,
he shouldn't have gone so high because he's overrated. He's injured. I thought you were actually going to go on a rant about him.
But they got T.J. Yeldon, running back out of Alabama a couple years ago. He's turned out to be what you expect most Alabama running backs to be, as the product of a really good line.
Yeah.
So I mean, when it comes down to it, do you wait on Fournette, or do you wait on running back? Because you're not going to get back up into the first round to draft a prospect like McCaffrey,
right?
For example, or anybody else who might have come back. And there was a huge drop off as far as running back goes. But
yeah,
I do think
2 or 3 good ones, and then
I do think that Zeke, for example, who was drafted 8, mind you, the same area that McCaffrey was drafted. I want to say Zeke was drafted at 8. We'll pull that up here. Regardless, the fact that Zeke was drafted so highly and did so well, I think increased Fournette's draft stock a bit, because everybody was like, oh my god, Ezekiel Elliott was taken at 8, a running back in the first round. That's fucking crazy. He was picked number 4. I apologize. He was picked number 4. Same thing with Fournette. So I mean, if you pick Zeke at 4, you could surely pick another running back at 4, right?
Yeah.
Issue is that Fournette and Zeke are different. Zeke is an all-around running back. He can catch passes. He can pass block.
Way more syllables.
He can run between the tackles. He can run outside the tackles.
He can jump into giant red urns.
Also hasn't had any sort of injuries. Leonard Fournette, after calling his first preseason game easy, now has a foot injury.
Hello, Darren McFadden. How are you?
So it's always a risk drafting anybody. And that's like an end statement, period. It's always, every draft pick is always a risk. There's always an inherent risk attached to every player. What you want to do when drafting is you want to minimize that risk. Leonard Fournette, I think, was a bigger risk than necessary when you have a team with as many holes as they had going forward. That being said, if he pans out, I think it is a really good pick. I think Leonard Fournette, I mean, he's scary. You've seen him run over people in college games. He's got breakaway speed for a really big guy, and he doesn't have bad hands. And if you don't draft a running back, you don't address that running back situation, you're then relying on Blake Bortles, who regressed heavily last year. So I understand why they did it, which is why I'm not, saying it's a terrible pick. But I also think you probably could have addressed different areas for sure.
Well, luckily they did with their second pick, because this kind of ties into something you were saying during that blurb. They got Cam Robinson, tackle from Alabama, and typically if you're getting an offensive lineman, tackle, guard, center, doesn't matter, from Alabama, probably a safe pick. And
not unless you're named Chance Warmack.
That's fair. But something that could really help them because, again, they're giving Blake Bortles I don't even know because things recently have already made it seem like
they've soured on Bortles.
Yeah, like Bortles might not even be the starting quarterback this year now. Like so far in the preseason, they're already kind of like, yes, Blake Bortles is on our roster. Like they're not coming out and saying he's the starter. They're not committing to him. They're really just like,
I think Blake Bortles' floor is about it's definitely
about his floor is right about where his ceiling is.
That's not what I was going to say. His floor is it's closer to Chad Henne's ceiling. I think are you going to go out there and start Chad Henne?
I mean, it depends.
You got to ride with Bortles at least for this year. I mean, what
if they go out and get Colin Kaepernick?
God, you're not going to do this again.
I'm just saying, like,
because now I'm gonna think about it. Like, is Colin Kaepernick better than Blake Bortles? It's hard to say.
I'm not a fan of Kaepernick, but I mean, if the team is already looking at this and saying, like, you know what, maybe fuck Blake Bortles.
Like, how about this? Hear me out, guys. How about fuck Blake Bortles? Like,
yeah. Has anybody considered fuck Blake Bortles? Is that an option? Fuck
We've
Blake
considered
Bortles?
Raising the Bortles. Have you considered fuck Blake Bortles?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, maybe they just say fuck it and they either roll with Henne or pick up Kaepernick something crazy like that.
I'm higher on Bortles than most everybody seems to be. I'm continuously higher than Bortles. He has the physical. He's got the
physical tools. He just can't. He's one of those guys that can't put it together.
I'll take Bortles' 2015 season over whatever Colin Kaepernick's best season, because I think Bortles did more with less than Kaepernick did.
That's fair.
I think Bortles at his best is better than Kaepernick at his best. Granted, Bortles is a turnover machine. And, I mean, Kaepernick near the end also was. So, I mean, I guess you could go with Kaepernick and see what the hell you got.
Yeah, maybe. In the third round, they picked up Dwayne Smoot, defensive end from Illinois, who I'm like 93% sure is related to Fred Smoot. And if that is, in fact, true, he is my favorite player in the NFL now. Just put that out there.
Round 4, Dede Westbrook, not to be confused with King Dedede of the Kirby universe.
Franchise.
Dede Westbrook, wide receiver out of Oklahoma, great talent, fell down the board because of character issues. And stop me if you've heard this, but the Jaguars drafted a wide receiver with possible character issues.
Does he smoke a lot of weed?
Yes. I'm shocked. So we'll see what happens there. They've already got a couple good wide receivers. Good wide receivers out there.
They're stacked at wide receiver, I'd say.
And Allen Hurns, Allen Robinson, and there's another one that I'm forgetting. But he just fourth round pick, I don't think is much of an investment. You might have been able to find a different better, but I mean, value, like I said, risk versus reward. Fourth round pick
may have just been a BPA for them.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. I'm typing something, so go. Sorry.
Fifth round they got Blair Brown, linebacker out of Ohio, trying to shore up that front seven.
Marquise Lee. They drafted. I know they drafted
Marquise
a wide receiver.
Lee.
I couldn't think of his name. Marquise Lee is actually technically their starting wide receiver on the other side, that opposite of Allen Robinson.
Yeah, and Hurns is their 3.
Yeah. So I mean, even then, like this is the point that I was trying to make before I just completely blanked on Marquise Lee and had you guys listen to that really awkward silence there. But I mean, you guys got him. He's the 4th wide receiver. Like you got enough time to sit him down. And I mean, if somebody's going to draft him, I mean, Tom Coughlin might be able to be like, listen, man, my way or the highway. You're either getting in or you're getting the fuck out. I don't care if I spend a 4th round pick on you.
Look, you can play special teams or you can be Ricky Williams. Take your pick.
Yeah, so I mean, this could have been a blessing in disguise for him. This is all depending on how much influence Tom Coughlin can have on the culture, and if they can win, if they can be good. So
yeah. The 7th round, they got Jalen Myrick, cornerback out of Minnesota, just adding a little bit more depth in their secondary, and then they got Marquez Williams, fullback out of Miami. Also in the 7th round, again, I have nothing for that pick because he's a fullback. You know, like fullbacks are a really endangered species in the league.
They are a dying breed.
So I don't know. Maybe they think that they can do something rotational with him in the backfield, or maybe he's just special teams pickup. I don't really know why they would make that pick. I guess they looked at who was left and they're like, "Fuck it, we'll just take this guy."
Leonard Fournette. They plan. Doug Marrone, and this is a popular quote. Doug Marrone was quoted how many times he wants Blake Bortles to throw the ball during the course of a game, and he said 0.
Yeah,
he said 0 with the straightest look I've ever seen on anybody's face ever. He was not being. He was being absolutely serious. So I mean, a fullback, not out of the realm of possibility.
I mean, maybe just don't put Blake Bortles out there, and actually, no, hear me out. Just
in the draft room, in the war room. Have we considered fuck Blake Bortles?
Fuck Blake Bortles. We'll just direct snap to anybody, whoever's behind the center. If it's the back judge, we'll just snap it to him.
Tom, Doug, I understand. That's not an option. We can't send that in to Roger.
If only. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be a shock if we somehow have the same record for the Jaguars.
I'm about to blow your goddamn brains.
Here we go. Blow me.
6-10.
Holy shit! Are you on the drugs? Did you not do the DARE program as a kid?
Hear me out. They have an interesting record, interesting record going forward. Like they have an interesting, God, I'm forgetting schedule.
You are Day Westbrook.
They have an interesting schedule. The schedule's pretty easy. They play obviously their division. So I mean, you're going to count some possibly upset wins in there. They play the Browns this year. They play the Rams. They play the Jets. They play the Chargers. So I mean, those are all possibly winnable games for them. They play the Bengals at home. I do have the Bengals doing well. They have the Cardinals, which we don't know what we're going to get out of the Cardinals. They're at the Seahawks, so that's a loss. They play the Steelers, which is probably going to be a loss, and they play the Ravens, which is probably going to be a loss. But I mean, there's some winnable games in there for the Jaguars. This is as winnable of a schedule as you're probably going to have. It's among the most winnable schedules. So I mean, I'd be more surprised if, and I've been saying this forever, I'd be more surprised if the Browns go 5-11 than the Jaguars go 6-10, because you saw what they put out 2 years ago in 2015. Like, this was a team that was, and this team is arguably better than that team. Blake Bortles goes out and plays half as well as he played in 2015, and I don't think it's crazy that they win 5 or 6 games. And like I said, you can
hot take.
This will probably be the last year that I will try and raise my Bortles.
Next year you're just gonna fuck your Bortles.
Next year I'm just gonna offer I'm gonna be calling Tom. I'll be like, Tommy, have you considered? And he's like, I have considered it. I have considered fuck Blake Bortles. I have, and we can't like. I see it. Like you see that 2015 season, and I'm like, we can do it. Like Allen Robinson, crazy. Like Allen Hurns, like fantastic. And they've only gotten better on offense. They have Marquise Lee. They have Day Westbrook. They have Leonard Fournette, who is better than Chris Ivory. He's better than T.J. Yeldon. Like they have the tools. They can do it. And 6-10 isn't like, that's a disappointing season for anybody that isn't the Jaguars. Like. It could happen, like,
or the Browns,
but
or the Jets, or the 49ers.
I don't think 6-10 is out of the realm of possibility for them.
It is not out of the realm of possibility. For I too have them improving their record this year.
They went 3-13. They better fucking improve.
I have them. Sorry, I almost choked on how sad this is. I have them going 4-12.
That's probably closer to where they'll be.
0-6 in the division. I have them 0-6 in the division. Now
they went 3-3 in the division, actually.
Yeah, and
they kicked the crap out of the Colts twice, is what I had, and they had them getting an upset against either the Texans or the Titans.
All three of the other teams in the division definitely improved. So, like the Jaguars, yeah, they improved, But did they improve because they still have Blake Bortles?
That's what it is, man. Like
it's like if you have a Ferrari and then you pour liquid dog shit into the gas tank and then go try to turn the engine over, like you upgrade it from your Jeep to a Ferrari, but you don't have any gas in the tank. You've got liquid dog shit.
I'm talking shit on my Jeep.
It's only a slight upgrade. I'm just saying, you have this great talented team, and now you have this slightly improved talented team, but you put dog shit in the gas tank, and the dog shit is Blake Bortles, and Tom Coughlin is your driving instructor. You're going 4-12. That's basically what I'm saying.
I think
that's
you're
the
placing,
most John Gruden-est explanation I could give for it.
I think you're placing more importance on what Coughlin's going to do going forward. But here's just to illustrate a point. Their 2015 record was 5-11. That was good enough for third in the AFC. They played the Panthers, went to the Super Bowl that year. They played the Dolphins, the Patriots, their division, Buccaneers, who were on the come up. They ended up losing to the Buccaneers, lost to the Panthers, won to the Dolphins, who Dolphins were also improving on that thing. Won against the Bills, lost to the Jets, and this was when Fitzpatrick was doing his magic season as well. Won against the Ravens, won against the Titans, lost against the Chargers, lost against the Titans, so they split with the Titans, split with the Colts. They beat the Colts 51-16. Lost to the Saints 27-38, so they could keep up with the Saints, and then lost to the Texans 30-6. So I mean, that record now, like that record then, is harder than the record they have now, and they're better.
Yeah,
and they were 5-11. One more win on top of that 2015 season isn't that hard with the schedule that they're given and with the talent.
I gave them a 33% improvement on last year. That's not an insignificant percentage.
No, I have them improving 100%.
No, you don't. You have them improving 50%. 100%. Math is hard. You have them 50% better than I do.
Yes.
Anyways, the point is, fuck Blake Bortles. And good night, everybody.
Good night.